Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Void podcast. I'm Enrique, my co-host Vince. Excited to host and have this veteran entrepreneur and CEO with us today, and I'm gonna let Vince introduce.
Oh, certainly. My honor to meet Chris Anthony, who is the founder and CEO of TeamWorx Security in Columbia, Maryland, back where I was in Alexandria, Virginia. So I know a little bit about the land. Excited to have you here, my brother. Let's just dive in and tell us a little bit about you.
I'm the founder and CEO of TeamWorx Security, which is a software-related company where we build applications and capabilities for our government, DoD, military folks. That's our core audience. I spent almost 12 years in the military. I was medically retired, and I spent most of those years in special operations in the Ranger Regiment and 10th Special Forces. And I come from the intelligence community. And after doing that, you know, what does one do when he or she leaves the military is try to figure out what your next step is. My military career was cut short, so I had the opportunity, you know, to re-examine, you know, the next 10, 20 years of my working life. And so I had to go through all of that soon after leaving the military. And I'm a guy who is in an infantry type of organization. And I loved every minute of it. You know, calling myself a veteran is something that I am very proud of. I love working with veterans today. I continue to mentor veterans, both in the military and those who are transitioning out. So it takes up usually one day of my work week. I make that happen. And, you know, I'm what I consider an accidental CEO. Throughout my military career, I've had the opportunity to work with some of, you know, our military's greatest leaders. And I was just fortunate to have been part of that. And, you know, from a technical perspective, I was always afforded the opportunity to build stuff. You know, we were building tactical networks with laptops in 96 and 97 and jumping out of airplanes with those laptops and stringing them together in the middle of nowhere to see if we can create efficiencies from an operations and planning perspective, again, in an infantry type of organization. So 26, 27 years later, I'm still doing the same thing. I was recruited by Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab. That was my next career. That was my, hey, I'm going to become an academic because it seems pretty cool. They gave me the opportunity to go back to school, to start my PhD. And, you know, what I did, which is what I've done my entire career, is I built stuff. I designed, I engineered, you know, solutions on behalf of our government and military. And one of those solutions was, we got a lot of attention, and we were asked to spin out of the Applied Physics Lab a little over about 4.5 years ago, which is launching yourself, you know, into the breeze, eyes closed, and hoping that you'll come down safely as a former paratrooper. And, you know, we're still doing that. TeamWorx Security is a technology company focused on enterprise tech, or solutions that make us more efficient, solutions that make collaboration between technical and non-technical communities better. And, you know, we've built a company around that over the last several years. And on any given day, we're about 22, 23 people strong, and we're continuing to move forward and continuing to figure things out.
That's outstanding. I'm a one for play of words, and I love how you threw in TeamWorx and the use of a B, right? Because what other collaboration, or what better collaboration than a set of bees, you know, in a hive and actually doing things. So I love that. So tell us a little bit more about TeamWorx Security itself.
So it's a company that, well, let me take a step back. You know, when we were launched into the startup world, none of us had come from a startup. In fact, it was myself and my founding partner. She had been an academic her entire life, you know, working at NSA at the age of 16 and jumping into academia shortly thereafter. So, you know, myself, military folks, we hired a lot of veterans along the way. How do you build a company that doesn't want to do traditional services, you know, that wants to build solutions very much like companies you'd see in Austin or New York or Silicon Valley. And we quickly discovered that, you know, there's a lot of reasons why those technologies, those commercial technologies, don't make their way here to the Department of Defense. It's a difficult thing to do business with our DoD. It's a long and arduous road. And but we were determined from day one to, one, not take any money from venture capital or an outside investor, because quite frankly, we didn't know how to spend any money up front. We were flat broke for about 18 months. And two, we really wanted to build technology that I would say were inspired by things that we see in Silicon Valley, inspired by things coming out of Austin. I've tried on numerous occasions to try to get some of those technologies licensed here in the DoD, and that's when we learned it's hard to do. So what TeamWorx Security does is that we build solutions that are inspired by things we see out in the real world, and we don't try to copy that, but we try to understand how some of that technology can really compel, maybe propel our DoD, maybe intelligence community and cyber mission forward. And you made reference to the bee. You know, Hive IQ is our flagship product. It was based off of a prototype that we had created at APL. And we decided to leave. When we decided to leave APL, we decided to build it from the ground up, something that was scalable. Again, taking reference and inspiration from the world around us. And that's really led us into not only one product, but we have 4 products today. So on the outside, you know, TeamWorx Security builds solutions. We're a products-based company. But what we don't talk about, what you don't see often is we spend a lot of our time trying to get better at doing business with the government, is learning how to contract with the government. You know, our government procures goods and services through contracts, traditional and non-traditional. So we had to figure that out quickly in order to survive. And to this day, we're still bootstrapped. We're hungry. We are, in some words, maybe aggressive. And we know what we want and we know how to get it. And above all else, if we don't know, we like to learn. And doing business with the government is difficult. But if I could say anything, I think that we're a living example of determination, maybe some grit, and really trying to get in there and work with a unique customer base. You know, a lot of tech companies in this space, defense tech space, don't talk about customers. We talk about our customers every single day. And, you know, much like a commercial company would. And we don't get that contract and just build something that nobody ever talks about. You know, our goal is to find a way to do business with the government and build a solution that everybody's talking about. You know, and so far so good. We're still doing it.
No, and I would say to you, you know, building loyalty in addition to the grit and the determination, I'll add resilience in there. And let's talk about, because what has happened to a lot of companies during the pandemic, some have survived, some have thrived, and some are not even here. So how is TeamWorx Security holding up in these times?
You know, just like everything else we had come across, how do you build a startup? And there's a million and one ways to do it. And we do it our way. When the pandemic hit, first, two things that we got right had already happened. One of which was TeamWorx Security is primarily a distributed working environment. We found great folks, many of whom are veterans, in states other than Maryland or Virginia or San Antonio or around big military installations. We found them in places like Arkansas and New York and Idaho. They still like to work for and on behalf of our unique customer. So we created a distributed working environment, workforce environment, rather, from day one. Today, we have employees in 7 different states, and that's continuing to grow. It's not that it's any cheaper. It's just something that makes more sense to us. Our desire is not to sit and occupy a seat at Fort Meade. I think we can do more on this side of the fence, and we do that. 2, the pandemic was unique in that it really forced us to, again, think outside the box. We're a company that prides ourselves in not following the status quo. And we had a growing customer base out in the United States. And we needed to be creative in how we reached out to them, because we could no longer go visit them face to face like we had been doing. And I'm currently sitting in one of our spare offices that we, about a year ago, turned into a full-blown studio with lighting and sound absorption. I think that's what you call it, and cameras. It's that, how do we knock on 1,000 doors a month in our very traditional, I'll call it, business development effort, customer engagement effort? How do we do that 1,000 times a month? And what we discovered was social media and content creation that you guys seem to know very well. Being a member of the intelligence community for a large part of my career, we don't do social media. In fact, I don't recall if I even had a LinkedIn profile, let alone a Facebook or other social media platform. So we had to get creative very quickly. Y'all know Chantel. I met Chantel early on, and she's basically taken, us by the hand and has shown us how to reach an audience of 1,000 people a month, or what we call knocking on their door. We do that through, efforts like podcasting. We do create pre-recorded training videos, situational awareness videos. When we broadcast, through a meeting of sorts, we go all out. We do lighting and camera placements in hopes of one person or 2 people in any room that we speak in will remember the quality of what we brought to the discussion. And that's simply what we've done. So we've actually grown 30, 38, 39% in the past year. We're still realizing some of that growth today. And, we took some chances, as a lot of startups would. We didn't have to let anybody go. And in fact, we hired folks last year. And, I think we're one of the fortunate ones. We make good decisions. We make some bad decisions that we don't often repeat. And we just keep plugging away, keep moving forward.
That's absolutely wonderful. I love when a company can take a situation like last year, learn how to adjust and capitalize and hire. It sounds like you did everything you could to do it right. And so congratulations on that. So now tell me a little bit about what the horizon looks like for the company, and anything, exciting that you would like to share.
We're very focused on the customer. And I love that question. When I read that in the list, I was like, we talk about our customer. I was one of those customers, during my active duty days, and we still get to build for those customers. So what started out with our flagship product, Hive IQ, again, has turned into, we have an additional 3 products with a growing customer list. And, every week I study how to do business with our customer even better. How do you do contracting? It took us about 18 months to figure that out. And how do you look at opportunities where we can best apply our craft? So my job as a CEO is to make sure that our folks have everything they need to be successful, whether it's in their professional life or personal life. From training to PTO. This past year has been hard on a lot of us mentally. We've got families at home, with 2 working adults or 1 working adult. So we've been able to build a company that really pays attention to our employee, and then who takes care of our customers. So that's my focus, is how to keep that going, how to keep opportunities coming in the front door. And that's my outreach. I like to say often that there isn't anybody in the company with the official title of salesperson. It's more, from contracts to we're mostly data scientists and engineers. And we have hired a lot of folks who are very artistic. And Steve Jobs had famously said that when those 2 types of people intersect, magic happens. So I try to bring in those resources to keep those intersections happening in a positive way. And, again, I always get better, and I will never learn everything, but I like to learn about how to do this job better every day.
Absolutely. And it's interesting enough because we're talking now next about professional development, but also you highlight a little bit about creativity and innovation, because that's how we all succeed in our changing environment. So I commend you for having a great team and building that team. So let's just talk about a little bit about leadership. What are you doing? So what professional development areas do you work on to improve your capabilities as a leader, Chris?
So that's a great question. I grew up in special operations and special forces, where you're typically surrounded by type A personalities. But at the same time, I was always surrounded by people who wanted to be there, right? You had to volunteer many times just to be part of those organizations. And by the time you arrived, you were surrounded by people who wanted to be there. So I was fortunate in that regard, to be surrounded by leadership, to be surrounded by people who have what we used to say have been there and done that, not just from a military perspective, but everything associated with the military, whether it's going into combat operations or achieving, master level of, airborne operations or jump master. So some of the folks that I was able to, what I call study under, are great people, and they're still great people today. And, I don't have an MBA, and I don't think that you need an MBA to do what I'm currently doing. But I do think that being open-minded in this approach, from a type A personality to somebody who learns to become a little bit more open-minded. One of the things that I like to say to myself is I'm fortunate enough to have surrounded myself with people who are much smarter than me, who know a lot more about what they know than I, and I get to learn from them. Launching a startup almost forced me to start reading books on how to do what I'm doing today. I'm about 36, 37 books into learning how to do this, or learning how to be me in this company. And unfortunately, all those books are right. They all have something that I relate to or have experienced, or both. And, I keep walking away after I finish each book and knowing that, it's really about forging my own path. And people say that, and I'm that type of person who has to live it and experience it to really understand it. And every day I'm reminded about how important that is. We kind of forge our own way through it's a startup or a career working for somebody, or doing whatever you're going to do. The military was a great foundation and continues to serve me well all these years later. And being open-minded at least was difficult at first, and I'm getting better at that every day, and every day I get to learn.
That's wonderful. Now, you mentioned early on that people wanting to be a part, right? And there's some people that want to be where you are and, eventually get to lead a team, lead a company. So what kind of advice did you get growing up and emerging as a leader that you can now pass on to somebody that's wanting to be in your position in the future?
I love that question. Again, I can't talk enough about the folks that I was able to work with growing up. And there was a lot of lessons along the way. One is, fear is healthy. Learning to live and succeed in uncertainty is important, but it's not everything. And understanding that it's okay to fall flat on your face. It's okay to make mistakes. And Lord knows I've made my fair share, and I continue to do that. I have worked with an organization or two in my past that they didn't want you to make mistakes. In fact, a mistake can simply ruin your career there. I just didn't feel like that was a healthy environment. And, we have a saying here at TeamWorx Security in that we're going to explore, we're going to research and development in areas that we want to gain an expertise or be better at. And we're going to fall many times along the way, but that's okay. Again, how do you build a model for a business around our interpretation of failure? And it's simply that. It's an interpretation of how not to do something. And so that's part of our process. It's part of my process. It's part of learning. I did that in the military. One of my favorite NCOs growing up, told me about the importance of being afraid of jumping out of an airplane, whether it's your 18th time or 150th time. Fear gives you a healthy dose of, being on the edge and really being prepared. That training, that observation never stops. And there's a lot of things that I could probably write down and tell you that I remember from time to time, things that have happened to me, things that, good and bad that I've learned, and these voices in my head sometimes carry through and make me realize, I'm still not in this world all by myself. I still have a great history and memories of all of the good times I had in the military. So great foundation for anybody willing to do it and go through it. But life doesn't stop there.
I love the fact that you said fear is healthy, because that's strong in itself. I mean, we could talk about that all day, but it really is faced with adversity and faced with challenges. And how yourself, Chris, handles challenges you faced or currently facing?
I read something over the weekend. I usually start my days early in the morning. It's my quiet time. I like to read a lot in the morning. And I was reading about the Apollo mission, and what led up to what we know is, the first landing on the moon. And I looked at it and I read the story from an engineering perspective. Back then, and I think in some regard we still do this today, is when there was a problem while they were building, this vehicle that can take a man to the moon. Those challenges didn't exist. Those challenges weren't documented. These were things that we were discovering brand new as a human race in the engineering field. And the way they coped with it back then is they all took a step back and, tried to, in a sense, maybe think outside the box, to understand what the situation was. One of my sayings is, take a step back and see the whole board. Look at all the pieces on a chessboard and try to understand and visualize how each move and each piece impacts your decision making and other. So from that approach, it's to me a very maybe engineering approach is, right or wrong, you take a step back, you understand, you try to get an understanding of what's going on, you engage those people who are working with you and around you, and you just simply try to come up with the best answer possible.
Yeah, that's a perfect approach at that. And as you was talking, I'm thinking about strategies, and you come from a very strategic background in the special forces, that everything is built on plans and strategies and then final execution. So how do you deal with certain strategies to implement in times of change? And how do you encourage your people, your group, to deal with those changes?
Change is inevitable. And early on, we realized that, coming to TeamWorx Security and assuming that you're going to work 8 hours a day to do your craft and not be part of the team and not be part of something that's contributing to something larger than yourself is wrong. I mean, there's a lot of jobs that may do that. Part of that process is change and being comfortable with it. Building this company is as much about finding the right people who could be successful in our environment, who could be successful in our culture, right? We're building a company that almost requires a certain type of personality or person or attitude. We try to hire for attitude first. And, it's tough, but I think that's where we start. We try to find people who are comfortable with, again, making mistakes, thinking outside the box. Just because we're good at JavaScript, one could assume that's all we're going to do is just write code in JavaScript every day. But we encourage everybody to work in other languages and other disciplines. And, Agile comes to mind. How do you do that? How do you do that distributed and with a remote team? And guys, if I can tell you anything, HiveIQ, again, our product, our premier product, helps people work better together. And we do that through clear communication and clear collaboration. It's not just chat. It's not just a collaborative platform. It really encompasses how people and their technology, maybe their workflow, work together. And we try to do the same thing here in TeamWorx. That's key. And that's one of the things I study probably every day is how do we continue to improve who we are? And that means people that we bring into the company have to be comfortable with a changing environment, to be flexible, to be challenged from time to time, and simply learning how to be comfortable outside of your comfort zone. If you come here and think that your comfort zone is going to be, a certain way for a certain period of time, this company is probably not the best fit for you.
What I also hear, Chris, is that you walk the talk of your core values, and you bring that to the team. So it's apparent. So I commend you for that. And for folks who would like to reach you or want to join the team or even hire your team, TeamWorx Security, how do they go ahead and reach you or the company?
Traditionally, website, teamworxsecurity.com. Worx is spelled W-O-R-X. We have a growing LinkedIn company page. We're located here in Columbia, Maryland. We don't make ourselves available to everybody. Again, we're a bit hyper focused, but generally those two platforms.
Outstanding. We're going to have that as part of the video and show notes so that folks can contact you and get a hold of you. Now, if you want to get a hold of the Leadership Void, our email is just that, theleadershipvoid@gmail.com. Please send us any requests, leadership based, anything you would like for us to contribute or answer or cover. If you are a guest and would like to be on the show, please let us know. We'll continue to scale those lists. We're almost booked for the year, but we always have opportunity to host folks. And more importantly, if you have any gear, you are a veteran company and you're out there, right? We have our gear. But if you have gear you would like for us to wear on one of our shows, by all means, share that with us, and we'll be gladly ready to provide that service and talk to you about other ventures. But Vince has a congratulatory remark here, and then we're going to talk about what we've been focused on in the last couple of weeks.
Yes, I do. And before, just again, we are again highlighting in this episode another great veteran doing great things who accidentally stumbled on this great opportunity here of TeamWorx Security. But for those who don't know, we've been asking week after week for you all to help us grow to 100 subscribers. And ladies and gentlemen, drum roll, please. We have reached our goal of not only 100, but exceeded our goal. So we are going to announce the winner of the book, From the Prayer to the Pentagon, soon. It either will be at our next episode on Wednesday or during our live broadcast of Radio Check, which happens every 1st and 15th at 1900 hours, which is 7 o'clock. So stay tuned. On the 15th of March, you might hear the winner there. So again, those two opportunities will be there to hear the next winner, the winner of that book. But thank you for letting us reach that 100 mark on our YouTube channel. And next week, we are actually rolling out to the greater Seattle area to talk to another dynamic veteran and leader. So stay tuned for that as well. But for today, thank you, Chris.
Hey, thanks guys for doing what you do. I appreciate that.